You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, isn't it?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off Day with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. Tuesday, March 24th. Thank you guys so much for joining us. However you are joining us, we appreciate it. The March Madness continues, both good and bad. We'll get to some of that coming up in just a matter of moments. But first and foremost, if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Make sure you subscribed. If you have subscribed, thank you. If you have not subscribed, please tell a friend ASAP about what we're doing right here in the Quad Cities every day at 10 a.m. We're also live on X as well. X has been very, very good to us as well. So, and also be interactive. The YouTube chat is up and going. It's very lively, especially of late. X, always a great way to reach out as well. So make sure you reach out, ask questions for guests, all those kind of things. Complain, compliment if you'd like to as well. That's always fun. So make sure you're being interactive with the show as well. We love that. Also, we are available on all the podcasting platforms as well. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Podbean, you name it, wherever you get your podcasts. Put it Off There with Matt Randazzo, and you can listen to the show each and every day. And also, welcome to our viewers in Central Iowa. We are on the WHO Plus streaming app each and every evening as well. So excited to have you guys join us along the ride as well. Yesterday was a great way to start the week. Of course, the University of Iowa men's basketball program in the Sweet 16 for the first time in forever, 27 years. Last time they were there, two guys named Jess Settles and Kent McCausland were big parts of that Iowa team. They joined me yesterday. A lot of fun to talk to those two. So if you missed that, go back and check it out. Also, former Hawkeye Nicholas Baer joined us yesterday as well to chat about Iowa, break down Iowa, Florida. A lot of great stuff from the Bear Cage. So he was awesome. Also, Mike Hagley from the Illini guys talking Illinois. They are in the Sweet 16. They play the game after Iowa on Thursday. So a lot of great stuff from Mike. And then we also had Gary Thrapp on talking about the senior all-star game last night at the Carver Center. So great show yesterday. If you missed it, go check that out. But we got a great one for you today. We move on to day number 2 of the week, and it wasn't the result that we expected in Iowa City yesterday. The Iowa women falling, and their season is done. They lose in double overtime. We'll get to more of that in a second. Kyle Huesmann, in a matter of moments, to talk about not just what happened yesterday, but how we're going to remember this season for the Iowa women, and also a look ahead, because they do return a lot of talent. They have a very good incoming class coming in. And then also they can add to that as well. Where do they have to get better? Those kind of things as you get ready for another season of Iowa women's basketball. So all that, Kyle Huesmann coming up in just a matter of moments. Yesterday we had Jess and Kent McCausland on. I'm really excited today. Coming up a little bit later in hour number 1, we're going to be joined by another guy who played on that team back in 1999, but is also got a son that's a big part of this year's team. JR Koch, Cooper Koch's dad, will join us coming up later in hour number 1. Really excited about that. Great dude, great family, and a lot to smile about right now. So we'll talk with JR Koch coming up in just a little bit in hour number 1. And then in hour number 2, we talked Iowa. We talked Illinois yesterday. We didn't talk any Cyclones, and I got complaints as usual. So Jake Brend is here to break down the Cyclones. Where's everything at with Joshua Jefferson? Will he play? Won't he play? Tennessee up next. Possibly Michigan on Sunday. So a lot to get to in hour number 2 with Jake Brend from the Cyclone Fanatic. News and notes before we get rocking and rolling. We mentioned Iowa losing 83-75 in double overtime. Chit Chat Wright had 19 points. Hannah Stolke had 15 points, 19 rebounds. Ava Hayden had 26 points. Iowa got outscored 9-2 in OT. And if you look at it, they shot 5 of 29 from 3, just 17%, and only 8 of 16 from the free throw line, 50% from there. Numbers that we'll talk more with Kyle coming up in just a little bit. They also outshot at the free throw line at Carver Hawkeye Arena. So I was surprised by a few things. We'll talk with Kyle in a minute. Also, the Illinois basketball team, their women's team, falling to Vanderbilt. I almost said Xavier. Vandy yesterday, 75-57 the final there. They went 3 of 23 from 3. So it was not a good shooting day for either of our local teams when it comes to women's basketball yesterday. How about UConn? I think at one point somebody texted me that the live line in the UConn game was 73.5 points, which is crazy. They end up winning 98-45 to get to the Sweet 16. So we'll talk some women's basketball. Like I said, Kyle Huesmann right around the corner. It was also the Iowa versus Illinois senior all-star basketball event yesterday at the Carver Center. The Iowa girls winning. Cora Weidel from Makokata won the 3-point shooting contest. So, of course, the Makokata girls continuing to win things, which has been basically the theme of this year. So congratulations to them. Iowa boys winning. It was Talon Becker winning the dunk contest as well. So congratulations to Muscatine's Talon Becker for that as well. And then before we talk some women's basketball, it is an anniversary today. A year ago, right now, Ben McCullum was being named the Iowa head basketball coach. And what a year it's been. I think people were excited by the move, excited and had expectations. I don't think if anyone, maybe early on, possibly a Sweet 16, but I think as the season went, and especially when you got the bracket out, I don't think a lot of people, if you gave them truth serum, would have told you they expect Iowa to be in the Sweet 16. Ben McCullum's done a fantastic job. It's been a good move for Ben, good move for Iowa. We'll continue to talk a lot about the Iowa men this week as they play on Thursday against Nebraska with a trip to the Elite Eight on the line. But we start our show today with a surprising result yesterday from Carver Hawkeye Arena as the Iowa women saw their season come to an end at the hands of Virginia. So joining me now to talk more about it is our familiar face. The best on the beat is what I like to call you when it comes to Iowa women's basketball. Kyle Huesmann joining me right now. Kyle, I didn't expect to have this conversation probably when it came to Iowa women's basketball this morning. Now being, almost 24 hours later, 20 hours later, your thoughts on what happened last night and Iowa falling to Virginia at Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Yeah, I mean, I think really what happened is pretty simple. I guess when you break it down as far as you can, is that Virginia made shots in tough situations down the stretch yesterday, and Iowa didn't. I think that's really kind of what it comes down to. And there's other things, and we'll get into it. But I think that was kind of the main thing, is that Iowa had opportunities to win. They led by 9 in the fourth quarter. They had their early lead in overtime, and free throws, had a couple of those that were missed, and just some other things, but missed a lot of shots. And Virginia made a lot of tough shots, and that's kind of what it came down to. It's a disappointing end. Obviously, everybody expected, Iowa to advance, whether that was inside the program, the fans, or outside the program, national writers, whatever. And we kind of talked about that just the pressure and the expectation that comes with hosting. Everybody thinks it's great to have, 15,000 people there cheering you on, which it is. But also when the game gets close in the fourth quarter and, Virginia's hitting all these shots and they're sticking around, that pressure and that expectation, can be a pretty heavy weight, because all of a sudden it's like, it's supposed to be easier than this. We are hitting some shots. We did have a lead, but here comes Virginia. They keep answering. And whether that pressure got to Iowa or not, I don't know. It kind of feels like it did. But yeah, certainly a kind of a disappointing ending to what really was a really good season.
You mentioned the good that was this season. We'll get to that in a second. Breaking down that game, and I'll be honest, this is probably bad to admit, but yesterday afternoon, watching the game up here in the office, in the luxurious loft that is the studios of Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, and it was a longer night, Sunday night. I did a podcast with Tommy for the Hawkeye Report about the Iowa men, and kids were up late, and I didn't sleep much, so I went downstairs and made the mistake of laying down, watching the Iowa game, laying down. Fell asleep when they were up 9 and woke up probably 10 minutes later. And I just, as I was falling asleep, I'm like, okay, this was, a battle, and I think we expected that. Nobody thought that they would just cakewalk into the Sweet 16. What happened in the fourth quarter? Because they were up 9. They're at home. Things are going their way. Is it credit Virginia for making some big shots and cutting that lead quickly? Because I think Iowa was a stop or two away from winning the game. I think they hit back-to-back threes to get it, wherever it was. I think it was 8 points in a row, whatever. What happened in the fourth quarter that didn't allow Iowa to close that game out?
Yeah, I would agree with you that I kind of thought Iowa had, I wouldn't say put it away, but I thought they were very closely trending to putting it away. And I think you're probably right that a stop or two more there early in the fourth quarter, and they probably do win it. Had a really good third quarter. I mean, that scored Virginia 25-11. Virginia had a 5-point lead at halftime. And that third quarter was huge. I mean, Ava Hayden was great. She had a couple of and one opportunities and converted on both of them. She had 12 points in the third quarter. Hannah was 3 of 3. She had 6 points in the third quarter. And they come out in the fourth quarter, and Ava had back-to-back baskets to get Iowa up 9. They're up 52-43 with 8:07 to play. And at that point, you're like, it feels like you said, they're maybe a stop and a score away. I mean, if Iowa gets a stop in the next possession and goes and scores again, they're up 11. Do they win? I mean, it was getting close to that territory where if you're Virginia saying, okay, we're into the danger zone here. And yeah, I mean, I think it was Virginia hitting shots. I mean, Paris Clark comes down, and she was the one that she had her own personal 8-0 run. She hits 2 threes. Iowa takes a quick timeout. The Iowa comes out of timeout, turns it over, and Paris Clark gets another basket, a mid-range jump shot. And she came into the day, against Virginia or against Arizona State and Georgia. She was 0-7 from 3-point range, and she was 3 of 4 in Monday's win for Virginia. And she hit 2 big ones there that, like I said, was in a spot where it might have taken another stop or 2 for Iowa to potentially put it away. And Clark hits 2 big threes and then has the mid-range jumper, and all of a sudden it's 52-51 a minute and a half later after Iowa was just up 9. So I thought that was kind of an early swing point. And then from there wasn't really a lot of scoring the rest of the way. Chit Chat had a big 3-pointer to kind of answer that 8-0 run. And then Hannah had a basket later, and Iowa was up 6 again with 4 minutes left. But again, I mean, just hit big shots. Romy Levy hits a corner 3-pointer, and then Kimora Johnson, who was fantastic really the whole week in Iowa City. She hit a 3 with 2 minutes left to tie it, and then there was just not scoring after that. I think people made a lot about the final possession of the game for Iowa. They had a chance to win it with 10 seconds left. My personal opinion is that they had a play drawn up to maybe get it inside to Hannah or Ava, and there was maybe something told to Chit Chat of, hey, if you don't get the right look, don't try to force anything. Just get a shot up at the end, kind of do whatever you want to do at the end, because and people aren't going to like that. But I think the reasoning there is if you try to force something into Ava or try to force something into Hannah and you turn it over, Virginia can call a timeout and advance the ball with 2-3 seconds left and still get a shot off. Now in the men's game, maybe it's, hey, if there's 5 seconds and you want to force something into the paint and it gets turned over, what are they going to do? If they hit a 3/4 court shot, great, whatever. But I think in the women's game there, it's, hey, if you don't get the right look here, don't do something crazy here and force it in. We're on our home court, just take it to overtime. If you hit a nice shot at the buzzer and we win, great. But in overtime, I mean, really what came down to is Iowa just didn't hit enough shots. And it kind of caught up to them at the end. They finished 5 of 29 from 3 for the game. They weren't good against FDU either. And I thought they got a lot of open looks. And I think that's kind of the frustrating part for not only the team, but the fan base. And to kind of get over it is just saying, like, man, look at all those open threes that they had that, they hit at times this season. I mean, Taylor Stremlo was a 40% 3-point shooter, sometimes above 40% this season. And she was 1 of 10 from 3. And Chit Chat Wright was one of the best 3-point shooters on percentage-wise in the country, and she was 3 of 9 from 3. And Kylie Fierbach, who's never been a high percentage 3-point shooter, she was 1 of 7. But a lot of them were really good looks, and I think in other days maybe she hits 2 or 3 of them. So I thought that was the disappointing part for Iowa, was it wasn't they turned it over 25 times or something like that, or they got out rebounded or something like that. They just didn't make the open threes that they had. And that ended up being kind of the difference.
Kyle Huesmann joining me right now and off there with Matt Randazzo. Kyle, you look at had several people text me that said, like, man, Iowa just ran out of gas, and I don't believe that, because Virginia didn't, and they'd played a lot more basketball this past weekend at Carver Hawkeye. First overtime is what it is. Second overtime, Iowa just didn't have anything, and Virginia kind of took control. What was the factors in double overtime? Because you just kept on thinking Iowa was eventually going to make a shot or two and they were going to win this game and move on to the Sweet 16, and we'd be talking about, it wasn't pretty, but now they can get right against, TCU and take a crack at that. What happened in the second overtime that allowed, Virginia to take the game over?
Yeah, well, I don't think we can completely go past the first overtime because of, some of the things that happened there. I mean, it really kind of gets mucked up with the fact that there were 2 flagrant fouls. To me, neither of them were flagrant fouls. I think they were over officiated plays, but certainly did a lot, because Iowa gets a basket to start over, or the first overtime, Ava Hayden gets a basket, and then the next possession, Hannah goes up for a layup, gets fouled. They call a flagrant foul for an elbow to the face. It's very similar to last season against Oklahoma, where it's somebody shooting a shot. Don't know. She's getting fouled as well. So I don't know how someone can be in your personal space and then get a flagrant foul from you for fouling you. Yeah. But the big part that comes out of that is Hannah Stuelke missed both free throws. And then Kamora Johnson goes down and makes both flagrant free throws. And what could have been, at worst, without a flagrant foul, could have been, Iowa up 2 Virginia ball. Instead, now it's tied. And then Iowa does get Virginia got the ball out of that. They didn't score.
Yeah.
But still kind of an early swing there where, if Iowa gets that foul and maybe Hannah makes a free throw, or even if she misses both, Iowa still has the lead. It kind of evened out because then at the end of the first overtime, Samaya Smith got a flagrant foul for a forearm that I didn't think it was a forearm to Hannah's neck. I thought it was to her upper chest, potentially. I didn't think it was a flagrant foul. It was an offensive foul. They just didn't call it. But I thought that was over officiated to go back and add a flagrant foul. And that kind of gave Iowa the golden opportunity because, Chit Chat goes and makes one of two at the line. Am I looking at this right?
Yeah.
No, she made both free throws.
Yeah, no, she made both.
No, because they had she went 1 of 2 on the flagrant free throws, and then Virginia had to foul because there's only 20 seconds left, and Chit Chat goes 1 of 2 at the line there. So an 86% free throw shooter goes 2 of 4 at the line. And now I was only up 65-63 when it could have been 66-63 or potentially 67-63. And then Kamora Johnson comes down and gets a basket. And I know I'm kind of droning on about the first overtime here, but I thought the final possession, Iowa gets the timeout. Again, another chance to win it. Really good play to me. Chit Chat drives in, kicks it out. Taylor Strimler with an open 3. I thought she hit it. Rims in and out, and Ava Hayden gets the offensive rebound and had about 2 seconds to have a pretty good look at a putback and didn't shoot it, tried to kick it back out. Talked with her after the game. She said she thought there was a little bit more time on the clock. One of those things where, and she mentioned this, she said it's her fault. She takes it, acknowledges that it's her fault for not getting a shot up there, but also mentioned that as a young player, especially as a center, she's never been in a late game situation where she gets the ball in that moment. It's like, you have to be very aware of the clock. Usually that's your guard taking a shot like that. So it was one of those where she acknowledged it's her fault. Also said it's, being a young player that hasn't really been in that situation with the ball in her hands. It's a good learning experience. And then, as you mentioned, the double overtime, Virginia kind of took control early. Wasn't really necessarily a lot of shot making from them. They hit a shot to start it after Iowa went empty on a possession and Iowa answered. But they had a couple of free throws in there. Paris Clark had another had a big basket plus the foul. She made her free throw. And Virginia just made some free throws down the stretch. There was a possession where Iowa, fouled with 1 on the shot clock. Chit Chat fouled Kamora Johnson. Iowa had done a really good job defending on that possession and that kind of bailed Virginia out with the foul there. And Kamora Johnson made all 3 free throws. That was kind of the big difference, was Virginia made some free throws down the stretch and Iowa didn't. And really at that point, Iowa was in trouble. They foul again. Caitlin Weimer made a couple of free throws. And Iowa was down 8 at that point. They kind of tried to play the foul game from there and it just didn't work. Especially with Iowa not making any shots. So, Virginia, it was one of those where it kind of felt like the way Iowa was shooting, the further the game went on, that might catch up to them unless they managed to snap out of it. But it was kind of one of those where first overtime, they're still not hitting threes. Second overtime, once you start getting into it, you're like, it's just not going to happen. It didn't feel like it was going to happen. And it felt like a game where if Iowa was going to win, they needed to get it at the end of regulation, at the end of the first overtime, because it was pretty apparent that they weren't going to make the shots if it continued to go to a second or a third overtime, that the shots just weren't falling. And eventually, the way that Virginia was shooting with making some of those tough shots, it felt like that eventually that was going to come through for them. But it ends up being really disappointing for Iowa because they won on the glass. They out-rebounded them 50-42. Virginia was the top 30 offensive rebounding team in the country. Iowa held them to 6 offensive rebounds. And Iowa had been near 300 in the country in offensive rebounding over the last 10, 12 games. And they got 20 offensive rebounds, but only got 9 points off of it. And then the other thing was they won the turnover battles. They had 16, Virginia had 20, but Virginia did a phenomenal job of converting and cashing in off those opportunities. Had 27 points off 16 turnovers, which is, people don't usually look at that stat. That's stuff that I look at, but that's pretty incredible to almost average, 1 3/4 points per turnover is pretty incredible. So Virginia just played a better game. I think that's really what it boils down to. They made the tough shots, they made the plays, and sometimes that happens in the NCAA tournament. People are going to be disappointed because Iowa was the one that lost, but we all do it. I guarantee you were doing it when Siena's beating Duke men's basketball. You're like, let's root for the underdog. This would be super cool. Everybody's rooting for High Point. Everybody's rooting for whoever in the women's side when all of a sudden there's a close game with an underdog opportunity. But then it happens to your team. Your team's the one that gets upset, and everybody goes, oh, how could this possibly happen? That should never happen. The coaching, the players, whatever. Some of it comes down to, Iowa just didn't play their best, and Virginia got them. That's kind of what the NCAA tournament is all about.
No, absolutely. Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining us right now and off the air with Matt Randazzo. Kyle, we've talked a lot throughout the season, and the one thing we kind of talked about when it came to ceilings and if there was something to worry about with Iowa women's basketball, it was shooting. They lost Taylor McCabe, one of the best three-point shooters in program history, and that's the worry, was that something like last night or yesterday afternoon would happen where, they couldn't shoot. I was surprised by the free throws and also the fact that a team like Iowa that pounds the ball inside only got to the line 16 times. I thought was in 2 overtimes. I kind of did a double take. Like, that can't be right. And they only made 8 of the 16. Is it as simple as saying Iowa, in order to get to the next level or to improve next season, needs to find some shooters? Is that an overreaction? Is that something obviously staff is probably looking at doing? How does it get better maybe moving forward, especially considering Iowa fans are probably used to watching Caitlin Clark and Gabby Marshall and Kate Martin make a high percentage of threes and shoot it well? What does I guess the short question to the long question is it just shooting? Is shooting the thing that Iowa needs to? Is that the reason they lost and the thing they need to address moving forward?
Yeah, I think specifically for yesterday, shooting was why they lost. I mean, especially from the free throw, and they were. I mean, probably poor is probably the right answer. They were poor free throw shooting for almost the entire season. And some of that goes to, Kylie Fierbach and Chit Chat are probably their best 2 free throw shooters, and they just, they're not players that they're not guards that get to the line a lot. Unfortunately, they're players that got to the line a lot were the players that didn't shoot it as well. And now Ava Hayden, I saw a stat on Twitter, somebody broke it down. Ava Hayden was really good at the free throw line over the last 10, 15 games. I can't remember what tweet I saw. So she really improved throughout the season. But Hannah Stolke, someone that gets to the line a lot and has just never been that very good free throw shooter. Now, playing in what ended up being her final career game, 1 of 6 at the free throw line, that's going to hurt her because, I think she knows that she could have made, even if she shoots near her average, she probably makes 3 or 4 of those 6. A couple of free throws down the stretch of Chit Chat missing a couple of free throws. That's very uncharacteristic. Kylie Fierbach was 1 of 2, and she even mentioned, hey, I missed a free throw. Those pile up. So I think that's the disappointing part, is that 8 of 16 is something that you can control and make a few more of those. The 3-point shooting, and I talked about this in my game preview for Virginia. The Virginia had length in the interior. They had 6'2", they had 6'3", they had 6'4" in the starting lineup. They would bring 6'4". Sometimes they would bring 6'5" off the bench. And that could potentially cause, maybe not problems in the paint for Iowa, but maybe cause them to be a little bit more inefficient. And Ava Hayden was 11 of 22. I don't have the exact 2-point shooting percentage number for Iowa, but Virginia was top 15 in the country in 2-point defense. And I think Iowa probably shot 40 to 45%, which is well below their average. And I said, if that's going to happen, which is possible, Iowa has to make some threes. And 5 of 29 is not making threes. That's 17%. So that was a big thing. Certainly the free throws were a big thing, especially just kind of when they came. Because like I said, if Chit Chat's 86% free throw shooter, she steps up and makes 4 free throws, Iowa wins the game. Because they're up 4 with 15 seconds left, yeah. And it's theoretically that's a 2-possession game at 4 points, as long as you don't do something dumb. So just there were a couple things that happened in certain spots that like I said, Taylor Stremlo gets an open look at a 3 to win the game, and she's been a 40% 3-point shooter this season. It doesn't go. So that was kind of some of the stuff that happened. But obviously, like I said, some of the other stuff. Rebounding, I would have been, if you would have given me those rebounding stats before the game, I would have said, well, first off, I would have said, why was there 92 rebounds in this game? But then I would have said, Iowa probably wins if they out-rebound 20-6 on the offensive glass. And I would have said, hey, Iowa probably wins if they win the turnover battle. But to your point, your question, I think they do need, 3-point shooting for next season. I mean, you look at what Iowa was, earlier in the year when they were healthy. They had Taylor McCabe, who was probably going to make 85 threes this season. And when you take that out, it certainly makes things difficult. Iowa held on for a while. They played actually really well after that 3-game losing streak. But they were only making, 5-6 threes a game. And eventually that's going to come back to get you a bit. And they have some good 3-point shooters. I mean, Chit Chat is obviously a very high-level 3-point shooter. Was top 5, top 10 in 3-point percentage in the country. And I think she has a chance to get maybe not even better percentage-wise, but even better in terms of making a few more. Just because she's going to get, if they can get her to be more aggressive and hunt her shot more, I think she can make more threes next season. And Taylor Stremlo certainly showed that she can shoot it at a pretty high clip as well. So they've got a couple of 3-point shooters, but what they don't have is like that Taylor McCabe that that can go for 80, 85 threes in a season. And Chit-Chat can probably hit 65, 70 next season, I think. But you need another player that can really, really shoot it. So that's going to be something that they're looking for in the transfer portal, I'd assume. Whether that's someone that comes off the bench or someone that can come in and be in the starting lineup, I don't know. That's kind of more questions for the coaching staff, how they want to build their roster for next year. But I don't think shooting is the only thing. I mean, you look at who they're losing with. Hannah Stolke's going to be gone. Kylie Fierbach's gone. That's a guard. There's probably going to be somebody that enters the portal, a player or two who we don't know. We'll see what happens there. But they only bring in one player with McKenna Velichko in the freshman class. So the roster, and obviously you talk about Taylor McCabe's, even though she's been injured, she's not coming back either. And Jada Gyamfi, I know she didn't play at all, but I mean, and she got injured as well. But she's going to be off the roster as well. So this is a roster that, depending on how many enter the portal, it could be a pretty small roster here in a couple of weeks. So there could be some players to add in the portal, certainly. And once we kind of see who enters the portal from Iowa and kind of what happens there, we'll get a better idea of what, how many people do they need and what do they need. But yeah, certainly shooting would be kind of at the top level there because, losing Taylor McCabe is a pretty big blow.
Kyle, when you go to the portal, the way I always look at it is that players that go to the portal that are good aren't looking to go someplace and not play. They want to play basketball. Is it safe now in our minds? And we're just dumb media guys, and media guy for me is a loose term probably these days. But you look at it and you got Ava, you got Chit-Chat, Taylor Stremlow's earned herself a starting position going into next season. You look at obviously McKenna coming in and being as highly recruited as she is. Journey Houston played well. Is there a starting spot to give at the University of Iowa next year, if that makes any sense? And you're not the head coach, so I know this is just speculation and all these kind of things, but if you were the head coach of the Iowa women, God bless us, do you feel like you have a starting lineup, or is there a starting lineup or a starting spot to give away in the portal?
That's a good question. I think the way that I would determine it is I would say I would not tell a transfer that you will start. I don't think I would tell a single. Now, I take that back. If there's someone that is a starter at a Power 5 school that wants to transfer to Iowa, I think maybe. But I think I don't know that there's many, if any, transfers that I would go into the portal if I was Iowa and say, you can start for us. Like if you come here, you will start. But I think what you could do is I think there are players that you could add that you could say, hey, let's kind of see what happens over the summer and in the early fall before the season. And if you earn the spot, you earn it. And if you don't, you're going to play a big role off the bench, but you might not start. And I think that's how you have to term it. And I think you're right. There are, players aren't jumping into the portal because they started and played every single game and every single minute at their school. I mean, potentially if, they didn't like the coach, they didn't have the team didn't have the season they wanted. But a lot of the players aren't entering the portal because they played the exact amount of minutes that they wanted to play and had the exact scoring role or whatever that they wanted. So it's hard at times. And I think that'll be kind of the thing is once you get, I think Iowa's going to need some depth in the portal. And it'll be interesting what they can get there because they are going to have to probably tell somebody, hey, you're probably not going to start. You're going to play a decent role, but maybe not a giant role. And can they find someone that wants to fill that? But I think you look at the shooting, like I said, the 3-point shooting. Can you find someone that can really shoot at a high level? Maybe it's a mid-major player that you say, I can't guarantee that you're going to start. Maybe if you come in and you prove that you can start over someone that's here or maybe one of the other transfers that they bring in, then yeah, you can start. But there's a chance that you come off the bench and maybe you play, 20, 23 minutes a game, whatever. But we're going to need your 3-point shooting. Maybe it's in the starting lineup, maybe it's not. I think they also do that at the forward position with McKenna Velichko. I know everybody thinks she's going to come in and start. We kind of thought that with Addie Deal, and we saw how that went. I think it would be nice, and they're going to need depth at the 4 position. Journey Houston can play there. I think if she gets, comes along with her 3-point shooting, I think she can play the 3. She could also play the 4, like she did this season at times. But I think you could bring in a transfer at the 4. And again, it's probably going to be hard to get a power 4 player that has played minutes because it's going to be hard to say, hey, you're probably not going to start. You could start, you might not start. But I think they need to bring in someone to be a depth piece behind McKenna Velichko because even if she does start, she has to come out of the game at times. And if she's maybe not quite ready when the season starts to be in that starting lineup, or maybe she's good enough to come off the bench in her freshman year, it'd be nice to have someone there that could start and has proven that they could start there. So I think those are the 2 spots, the power forward spot and, I guess shooting guard, just someone that can shoot it. I think those would be 2 spots that you go into the portal and you find people that are proven at those spots. But you say, hey, listen, we can't guarantee you're going to start. You're going to we want you to play a big role, but you got to come earn it, because we have some players here that we feel like could start as well. And we're not going to tell them they're not starting because, we're bringing in so-and-so transfer. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Cause like I said, they're going to need some depth pieces past those two spots that I just said. And can you convince a player that maybe hasn't played a lot in their career at a power four, or, maybe has played a lot at a mid-major, and say, hey, like, we want you on our team, but you're not going to start. Again, you need the Molly Davis type player that was scored a lot of mid-major and is a good player, but said like, hey, like, I don't care if I come off the bench and play 15 minutes a game. Like, I just want to be able to help your power forward, your Iowa team. Are there a lot of those out there? I don't know. That's something that the coaching staff has to see if they can find one of those.
Okay, I feel like the chat's already asking me. I haven't looked, but I'll ask you along with maybe some tweets. And not in a negative way, but where do you see Journey Houston next year on this basketball team when it comes to, you mentioned a 4 and McKenna coming in, but a backup there is Journey. I mean, she played probably out of position at a 4. She's probably a 3. I know from covering her, and I'm telling all Iowa fans this, she can shoot and she can extend it beyond the 3-point line. I think we talked to her on this show in December. It was during the season, and she was off to a good start, and Bailey and everybody was gracious enough to let her come on the show, and she talked about how, like, she's ready. It's in her bag, I think is what she told me, that there's more that she can do. Is she a 3? Is she that option at a 4 if they don't have a backup, or is she competing with McKenna next year at a 4? Where do you see Journey fitting in next season?
I think, for her individual sake and probably the team's sake, I think you want her at the 3. And I think she shot 40% at Davenport North as a senior from 3-point range. Now, it wasn't like 40% and she made 73s or something. I think it was 40% and she made like 35 threes, which 35 threes at 40% is still solid for that spot. I think, she's still going to come off the bench next season. I don't think she's going to start. But if she could play the 3 and shoot around that level, I think that would be really, really helpful and really beneficial for Iowa, because certainly you can move her down to the 4. And if she can get comfortable shooting the 3 and play the 4, then you maybe not necessarily a stretch 4, because stretch 4s are usually a little bit taller. Certainly she can rebound like a 4. So I think if you could get her comfortable shooting the 3 at the collegiate level. Now, again, I don't know whether that was her not being quite comfortable with it, or if that was, hey, that's not really what the offense asked you to do. I don't know that. But certainly I think, she shot it well at Davenport North her last couple of years there. I think that would be certainly something that I would like to see her do next year, shoot the 3 and shoot 35-40%, because obviously she's shown that she can do that. And if she can do that, she's going to earn more minutes. But I think that she does have the flexibility to play the 3 or the 4. And certainly if she gets comfortable and can make threes, bringing her in at the 4 and bringing her in an undersized, at the undersized 4, but can also shoot the 3, can help Iowa in some spots. So I think the hope would be that she can play the 3. Because again, I think that, I don't know that I would want to go an entire season with your 4s being McKenna Velichko and Journey Houston, just on the off chance that McKenna Velichko is not quite ready to be the full-time starter at the 4. Journey Houston, like you said, is kind of undersized there. So I don't know that you would want both of them to be the only 4s. So if you could bring in a transfer at the 4 and then have Journey play the 3, and then maybe in some situations play the 4, I think that would be that would work best for Iowa. But again, what she make 3 or 4 threes this season. She's going to have to make more than that next season. But the good thing is, like I said, she has shown in her time at Davenport North that she can shoot the 3 and shoot it at a pretty good clip.
Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report. Kyle, before we let you go, what will this season be remembered for? You kind of look big picture, and yes, it's the disappointment here the morning after and all that kind of stuff. But 27 wins, 28 wins, whatever it was, second in the Big Ten, piled up a ton, 15-3 in the Big Ten or whatever it was. What will this season be remembered for under Coach Jensen, her second year at the helm?
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? I mean, because people there are some people that say like, well, the NCAA tournament shouldn't be everything. Like, you have to, and I agree with that to a certain extent, but like the other side of that is you don't play a regular season for nothing. Like, it's all culminating with the Big Ten tournament, with the NCAA tournament, and the goal is to make Elite Eights, Final Fours, national championships, win a national title. So to a certain extent, you can't win 25 games every season and never make a Sweet 16 or never make an Elite Eight or something like that. Because the ultimate goal is the NCAA tournament at the end of the season. It's the same thing in every other sport. You don't win 100 games in the MLB and then you're like, well, that was nice, we didn't make the World Series or whatever. The NFL, we were 14-3 and we lost in the second round of the playoffs. Like, everything in every sport is all about the postseason and what you can do there. So to a certain extent, I understand people being upset with losing in the second round. But I don't think some of the stuff about, some of the extra upset people with, the coaching, the players, this and that, the stuff needs to be fixed. They still did go 27-7. And that is an impressive season. And I think they overachieved in a lot of ways. I think, they were picked, 6th or 7th in the Big Ten. Actually, they weren't in the top 6 in the coaches poll. So, 7th, 8th, whatever they ended up being picked. And like you said, they got 2nd in the Big Ten. They beat some really good teams. They beat Michigan twice, who I think is going to be an Elite 8 team this season. They beat Maryland, who was in the NCAA tournament. They beat Baylor, who's in the NCAA tournament. I mean, they racked up double-digit wins against NCAA tournament teams. And I think there's a certain a level of appreciation and happiness that should come with that. And I think, the fact the way that it ended is always going to be something that gets looked at, just because we felt like this could have been a team that beat Virginia and maybe beat a TCU and made a run to the Elite 8. And I still think this team was that good. It just didn't work out that way. But in terms of, trying to evaluate Jan, I guess, if you want to say, she had a solid first year where they did pretty much exactly what we thought they would do last year. Like we've talked about before, it's kind of a roller coaster to get there, but I think last season's result was about what everybody expected. I think this year was above expectation outside of the final game of the season. And I don't think you can completely throw away an entire season because of the last game, but I do understand the side of the fans saying like, hey, you did all this throughout the year. And then, it kind of does get thrown away to a certain extent. But I don't think this should be thought of as an unsuccessful year in any way. I think there were a lot of great things that happened. I think there was a lot of growth with this team. Players like Taylor Stremlo, Chit Chat, Ava Hayden, players that are only sophomores that still have 2 more years left at Iowa. I think there were a lot of building blocks for the future. But whenever any team has a really successful year, and I would say even especially on the women's side, because you get to host in the NCAA tournament, I think anytime you're a host in the NCAA tournament and you fail to get to that second weekend and somebody beats you on your home floor, there's always an extra level of disappointment. But again, I don't think that should take away from the entire season. That's just kind of the way it is. But I said it with Tom on the podcast last night. I kind of compared in ways this women's basketball season to last year's baseball team, where all season the baseball team was overachieving. I was like, wow, this is great. Like, look how good they are. The women's team this year, kind of the same. We didn't expect them to be this good. We didn't expect them to be this good. They keep winning. Like, wow, they're a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And similar to last year, baseball, they faltered down the stretch. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. And the women's team loses in the second round. And it's all like, wow, like that was just super disappointing ending. And people kind of forget that for the large majority of the season, they kind of played better than we expected. But what happens when you play above expectation is then the level that you're playing at becomes the new expectation. You get to the NCAA tournament, you say, well, I was 27 and whatever they were, 26-6 going into the NCAA tournament. Well, that means they're 26-6 good, right? So it's one of those where it's tough. And I understand why the fans are disappointed and upset. But I still look at it as a really successful season with some building blocks for the future. But certainly it's hard to get over the way that the season ended.
Absolutely. I'll finish with this. If you would have told me that Emily Rodriguez doesn't basically play and Taylor McCabe goes out with an injury that ends her season midway through the season, I would have been extremely concerned about what Iowa basketball would look like this year. And I think with those two things coupled in, and injuries throughout the way with a lot of people, there were several bumps along the road. And I think they did a good job navigating those and getting the most out of this team. Obviously, the most probably would have been a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 when it comes to result wise, but I think a lot of victories for this team as well. I will add, Kyle, and I listened to it this morning. Kyle and Tommy did a fantastic podcast yesterday. You carried the load as usual. But they also talk about the and go listen to it because they talk about the UCLA effect and if that victory or that loss in the Big Ten tournament had any hangover. So we'll tease with that. We won't talk about it here, but go listen to the Hawkeye Report podcast. And Kyle, this doesn't mean our relationship is done either, my friend. I'm still going to bug you all the time. Baseball season is rolling. And like you mentioned, that transfer portal, like once that stuff gets rolling, I think it's good. There's March Madness. And then I said last year, there's like April Madness because college basketball is just as newsworthy in the next couple weeks as it is right now.
Oh yeah. I'm not completely on the baseball season because certainly there'll be, and it could be even crazier than last year because of what we're talking about. There's a chance that they could have to add 3, maybe 4 players in the portal, something like that. So Just because they're adding 3 or 4 players in the portal, that means there's probably like 15 people that they really looked at. So it will be interesting to see what names come up and who visits, who they get, things like that. It's certainly, I can't say as though I'm a huge fan. I think the portal is good in some ways, but man, it gets pretty crazy pretty quickly.
It's funny. It's this time of year where men and women, like anybody who goes to the portal, I'll get a random text message from somebody. Hey, did you see this guy? Do you think Iowa's interested? Hey, did you see this girl? Do you think Iowa? And no, not everyone that goes in the transfer portal this time of year is not interested in Iowa and vice versa. So just relax. Let guys like Tommy and Kyle find out what's going on, and then just follow them, and they'll take care of you. Kyle, be good. Enjoy some baseball. We'll catch up with you soon. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, that is Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining us on Off Day with Matt Randazzo to talk a disappointing end of the season for the Iowa women. But he mentioned, like, when you look at it, you have, Chit Chat, Stremlo, and Ava Hayden, your sophomores coming back next year. That will be juniors. And that's a great foundation. Journey Houston played well. Addie Deal flashed and showed a lot of ability this year as well. And then that McKenna's coming in and she's got the 5-star and she's got the track record along with it. So there will be some changes and some things done in the portal and all those kind of stuff. But the Iowa women's basketball program is in great hands. And just because of one double overtime disappointing loss in the round of 32. Remember, the last time Iowa lost at home in the round of 32 was Caitlin Clark's sophomore year. And look what happened after that. And I'm not saying they're going to back-to-back national championship games. I'm not that guy. But they do have a player, not Caitlin's level. I mean, there's not any that are. But Ava Hayden's going to be a preseason All-American next year as a junior going into a junior year, similar to Caitlin, same thing. So take a breath. Everything's fine. And go watch the men, because the men are still playing basketball. The Iowa men in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. Yesterday we had 2 knuckleheads named Jess Settles and Kent McCausland on the show. Really enjoyed it. It was a ton of fun. Coming up after the break, we will talk with another former Hawkeye that's got a much closer connection to this team than those two did yesterday. JR Koch, former Hawkeye, and Cooper Koch's dad will join us right after the break. You're watching OTA on a busy Tuesday right here in the Quad Cities. All right, be honest. Are you craving Hungry Hobo again? You know, that fresh sliced meat piled high on those amazing sandwiches, hot off the grill chicken and steak, with all those delicious toppings, the biggest and best selection of baked potatoes, or simply some waffle fries dipped in cheese. Well, now that Quad City favorite is even easier to get. Download the Hungry Hobo app today. Order ahead, skip the line, and earn rewards all at the same time. There's Double Points Monday and exclusive specials as well. With 12 locations in the Quad City area, it's Hungry Hobo, now even easier to find, but still hard to resist.
Rafferty Funeral Home, dedicated to serving families in the Quad Cities since 2007.
Hi, welcome. Here, come on in.
An experienced staff plans each service to reflect the unique life and legacy of your loved one. Rafferty Funeral Home is proud to serve our community with dignity, respect, and compassion, helping you to celebrate your traditions and lasting memories no matter your faith, culture, or budget. Rafferty Funeral Home in Moline. Call today to discuss prearrangements.
When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. A lot of basketball on everyone's minds this time of year. If you missed our first segment, Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining us to talk about a disappointing Monday afternoon at Carver Hawkeye Arena, what it all means, big picture, and then, of course, moving forward, what this basketball team will look like next year. So women's basketball in Iowa City, surprisingly done a little early. On the flip side of things, the Iowa men are in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. It was a crazy Sunday night. A lot of people excited. If you missed yesterday's show, it was awesome to catch up with former Hawkeyes, Jess Settles and Kent McCausland, two guys that were on that last Sweet 16 team way back in 1999. I was thinking about it the other day, and 1999, I was a freshman, I think, or sophomore, probably a sophomore at Ambrose when they were winning or going to the Sweet 16. Crazy to think about that it's been that long. Exciting that they're back doing what they're doing and back in the Sweet 16. And we talked with Jess and we talked with Kent, but there's one guy on that 1999 team that's much closer to this year's team, and for very good reasons. He's got a kid that was making big plays this past weekend as well. So joining us now to talk about that Sweet 16 that the Iowa Hawkeyes are going to this week is a guy connected to the program in so many ways. We've had Cooper on like 3 times, and finally we get the old man to join us as well. JR Koch joins us right now and Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. How you doing these days, Dad?
Good. A little bit tired, a little sleepy, but we're running on fumes, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love it. I guess we'll just start with the obvious dumb question, but a Sweet 16 for this team, and watching Cooper and those guys do that in Tampa on Sunday. What was it like for yourself and your family to experience that?
It was just special, you know. I told some of the guys like Jess and Kent and, you know, a whole slew, Louie and Dean and a lot of these guys that were on that team. We were texting last night, Jacob Jakes and DeWez and Jason Smith, you know, from your area, and you know, just kind of reminiscing and talking about it and saying congrats and this and that. And, you know, I kind of told them, I said, hey, you know, well, one, I didn't respond to any text because I had like 200 by the time, because it started about right, I don't know, the first 2 minutes of the second half, and then my phone just did not stop buzzing. So finally I got back to some of those guys, and I said, hey, you know, it's pretty special. I said, you know, and I put it out there on Twitter as well. But, you know, Coop told me when he committed that, you know, we're going to get back there, Dad. You know, we're going to get back to the Sweet 16. And, you know, it's in the back of my head, I was kind of thinking, yeah, kid, you know, you don't really know what really goes into this and how hard it is and, you know, all this stuff. But all of a sudden, you know, I'm pinching myself, and they did it. You know, the team did it, and he played a big part in it, and it's just really special. Can't say it enough.
Can you separate, and is there's probably a difference between watching as dad and then watching as a former player? Like, we had 2 knuckleheads, you know, a little bit, Kent McCausland and Jess Settles. They claimed to have played basketball with you back in the day. I had them on, and they're watching as former players and Iowa fans. And obviously that's what you are as well. Can you separate, or do you see yourself watching his dad and then enjoying it as a former player, or does it all just blend in together, if that makes any sense?
I think it kind of blends in together, but you know, like I put on my coaching hat and kind of my ex-player hat, you know, Coop kind of, you know, we discuss, and he's very intellect, you know, he thinks about the game, and he dissects it pretty well. And so he was kind of telling me, you know, the game plan, and I kind of knew it was going to be a possession game, and kind of a battle of the opposites here. And if we could take care of the ball and rebound and, you know, hit some shots, that we could win the sucker. So I was running scenarios, and he was talking to me about it. And, you know, we kind of were going back and forth, and, you know, so that was maybe the old player hat. But, you know, the more I thought about it, you know, it could be a reality. And, you know, then all of a sudden the game was there, and Tavion played out of his mind the first half and kept us in that thing and made big play after big play. And then, you know, we just got plays and made plays down the stretch. And, you know, that's my that's the father. It was just a joy to watch the guys come together and get it done and just battle. It was special.
Take me through your vantage point. I think you're probably sitting close to Tom Kakert said you guys were all up behind him. So I kind of know maybe the area you're at. Take me through your vantage point of 8.9 seconds to go, down 2. Did you have a thought? And we talked about on the show yesterday with both Jess and Kent, but then Nicholas Bear was on after that. And I think people on X have brought this up too. I know that the shot by Al is going to be remembered for a long time. The entry pass is a difficult entry pass. And I know, like, you don't want to be, you'd sound like dad if you're like, my kid's inbounds pass was the key, so I'll do it for you.
No.
Like that was important. So take me through your vantage point of maybe the last 8.9 seconds of the basketball game.
Well, we're taking it out, and I'm kind of wondering why they're pressing, because that's not what I would do. It was kind of weird, but and I don't watch enough Florida. I've watched maybe 2 or 3 games throughout the year of them, but I guess that's maybe something that they've done throughout the year is take the foul but the coaches, they dialed it up perfect, and Coop was able to catch Bennett in stride going downhill, and then Hawk tried to step up, and it was just a simple bounce pass, and Al did the tough stuff. But Coop came and had breakfast with us this morning, and he's like, yeah, I wondered if that was going to get tipped. Like, I knew it was going to be close. So he's always been a good passer, but like he knew that one was the angle, and it's got to be almost perfect. And
yeah.
he did it. The guys got it done.
It was an elite pass to get there. So lead by 1. I'm just a fan watching, but it felt like from when that shot went in to when they actually played the last play, it's because they had the clock thing, and then they took the timeout. It felt like a half hour went by before. Did it drag for you guys in the stands waiting for this staying game to get done?
Yes, I mean we're looking up there, and we're like, they don't have any timeouts, and all of a sudden, all right, we took the timeout, and then all of a sudden there's another delay, and it was like, what's going on? How does this, what is? So yeah, it was just kind of chaos, but I really do like our timeout there, because we kind of formed this wall, and we had it all set up and just forced them down, and guys came and pinched on Hawk, who was trying to come in there for a little drop down for him, but there wasn't enough time, and it was because the guys up front, did a good job. It was just, the coaches are so prepared. I can't say that enough. Every detail they know. It's just talking to Coop, talking X's and O's and hoops. It's very fun, because he's learning he's getting, and it's a different side. Like, I'm trying to kind of get inside the mind of Mac and kind of understand how he's ticking and stuff. And, those conversations are very fun, just getting a feel, and, how they go about practice, how they go about, just game prep and this and that.
JR Koch joining us right now on Off There with Matt Randazzo. Buzzer goes off, light goes off. Coop, I've seen the picture of you and Coop, sharing a moment after that game. Take me through when it goes off, and that moment had to be something. I mean, JR, come on now. Like, that's something you guys talked about. I'm trying not to. That had to be pretty special, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was special. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. And so for that to happen, and him to just come find me, it was special, man.
I can only imagine.
Very special.
JR, let's go back a year ago. We talked about the game a couple days ago. A year ago, y'all had no idea what was going on. And obviously, I try to tell my kids, and they never listen, and hopefully they do. But I always say it's not in life. It's not what you do in life. It's how you respond to bad things, because bad things happen in life all the time. And I'm not saying last year was a bad thing, but it was just an uncertain thing with what happened and everything. There was that uncertainty. Sure. If I would have told you a year ago, hey, you guys are going to stay at Iowa and the drought's going to be done because they're going to go to a Sweet 16, would you have believed me? Would you have thought I was nuts? What would you have said to me if I would have told you that a year ago?
I would have said probably you're nuts, and then I would have asked a bunch of questions like, all right, who's on the team? What kind of part did my kid play? Did he play? Just some different because we had no idea. I mean, and you don't know with even year to year you don't know with the portal. So it's next year's. I feel like we've got kind of a direction that we're going, and it's it's starting to percolate, and it's a lot of fun. But you never know. But last year it was different. I mean, we were sitting right here, trying to, and to be honest, Fran was great through that process. Fran helped Cooper so much to set us up with some good representation and telling us to get into the portal. And, to be honest, Cooper really was wasn't interested in it. He didn't want to do it, for a lot of reasons. But, in talking to coach and talking to other people, we were like, you got to do this before a new coach is named. And so we did that. But, as soon as he was able to talk to Mac, Coop's all about winning, and he's all about the Hawkeyes. And I don't think that'll ever change. And that's where his heart was. As soon as he talked to Mac and Mac felt the same way, it was done.
I want to talk to you about a few trying times, and one of them is this freshman year, because not the situation, but the health and not being able to play. And it's funny because I covered him a little bit in high school. I knew of him. He's down close to our area. Some Quad City teams went down there and got their butts kicked by by Coop a few times. And there was a guy that in that area covered you, some legend by the name of Jim Madsen, that texted me one day.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, Daz, I was getting a really good one. Coop is really good. So I knew of Cooper, but you didn't get to see it last year because of injuries and things that he had to deal with. How difficult was that for Cooper last year, for your family last year, to go through what you had to do off the court?
It was tough. I mean, it was really tough on him because once the team started to kind of struggle, his mind, he wanted to almost give up his redshirt year to come back and help. But, we kind of, that wasn't the right thing to do. And so getting him to realize that and getting him to, do what's best for him. And, we're already going down this process, and there were still some unknowns with his lungs and stuff. So, we figured it out. And, the coaching staff was last year was very good about that, being patient, but also, Coop went to work because of the situation. Once he was cleared, he was trying to, find out and make sure how far he could push himself. And he was working his butt off in the weight room and, going as hard as he could on the court and practice just to kind of push himself to test. He was doing a test with himself, and he kind of passed that test because he didn't have any surgery with this episode. And so when he kind of passed and he wasn't getting anything and it wasn't doing anything, it kind of gave him some confidence, I think. And it kind of, I don't know, snowballed a little bit, and he worked even harder. And it just kind of kept on kind of growing and growing.
We talked to Cooper on the show last week, and we brought up there was a 6-game stretch, and as a dad, that he didn't shoot it very well. And Tom Kakert, myself, we do a little podcast, and he's been on this show as well. We kind of get biased. We know you and Cooper have gotten to know pretty well. So, and you don't forget how to shoot. And so I asked him, like last week, I said, had you ever been through something like that where you'd slumped and all those kind of things? And he said, like, he was honest, he's like, not really for that prolonged amount of time. And I asked him how he worked through it. And he brought you up and talked about how, it still looked good and all those kind of things. What was that like for him to go through that? And then what do you do as a dad? I feel like my sons would just tell me to shut up, Dad. Does he listen? Do you even try?
Yeah.
Take me through that slump maybe.
Well, one as a parent, and for all the parents out there, and the higher the level, it becomes more, it weighs on you as a parent, when your kid's not doing as good as, he can, and he usually does maybe. So it was hard. He would call me and he's like, what am I doing? He'd get frustrated. And, if you ever watch him during warmups, He'll look over at me and kind of, we'll kind of, I've rebounded for him for, forever. And so
Yeah.
I know little details. I mean, for a while it was, 2 or 3 degrees more arch is what we were kind of aiming for. Like, hey, you're hitting the back of the rim, you're right on. Let's just get a little bit more arch. And so there were some cues with that and things that we do as far as getting a little bit more arch. And, it's just, but he's a grinder. Like, I love him so much. We still have him on Life 360. And, so we'd see the notification. We have Carver and his apartment. And it seems like he'd go there for a morning workout. He'd come home, get lunch or go to class, come back, he's back at Carver, and then next thing you know, he's back at Carver at night. So that's Coop in a nutshell. Like we would talk about it, and it's you just work yourself out of it, and that's just him. That's just how he rolls.
The good news, Dad, is he's out of that slump, and I would just say to people, is he didn't forget how to shoot, and they go through slumps like that. What was it like to see him snap out of it? Penn State, Nebraska, Big Ten tournament, just the other night. It's not that you lost confidence in him, but you have to, as much as it weighs on you when it's a struggle, it's got to feel that much better as a dad when it's going well, right?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. He's one, and he kind of said, he's like, I'm catching these these bombs at the end of the shot clock, and then I'm kind of losing confidence, and all of a sudden when that first one went down, and he was just able to shoot it, not at the end of the shot clock when I gotta chuck it up and I'm not bound, whatever, and so when that first one went down, I was like, okay, we may be onto something. Like, let's keep moving, let's keep going. And Mac does a real good job of drawing up some things and kind of getting him some looks. So yeah, it's special. It's special when you see those start to go down. Then that he's kind of getting this weight lifted off of his shoulders, and it's fun. It's good stuff.
When I first met Cooper, it was an interview we did last year when he said he was coming back to the University of Iowa, and great kid. And well spoken, but not overly. I wouldn't call him overly outgoing. And once you get to know him, like it's been a lot of fun to get to know him a little bit. But he got fired up on the court. And the other day, like I didn't see some of it, but Tom said there was some dances after after the last 3 he made, and then I don't know if you've seen it on X, Dad, but like him doing this over and over has gotten some attention nationally. He plays with his heart on his sleeve a little bit. Your thoughts on? I mean, you love the emotion. Your thoughts on that kind of stuff? Has he been like that, or is that Coop?
He's always kind of had this bully clap that he does, he gets, but I think what it is he's got to play for him to be effective. He's got to play at 100%. And so your emotions, everything is just ramped up. You're at 1,000 RPMs and your emotions are higher. And that environment last night, I mean, we were the 3%, they were the 97%, and they were letting us have it, as they were coming back on that run, and then we kind of stemmed it, and then they got ahead again, and they were letting us have it, and just no offense, Coach Golden, but I don't like him, and I know Coop doesn't like him, and that whole thing, the way it played out, so he was going to enjoy that, and they can be mad, their fan base can be mad and the whatever. Hey, you go through that and you play in an atmosphere like that, you're going to feel the same way. You're going to do the same stuff because everybody in that crowd was doing the same thing to him.
No, absolutely.
And when we ran out, they were doing the same thing to us.
Oh, I love it. I love it. JR Koch joining us on Off There with Matt Randazzo. I won't keep you too much longer. There's another game to be played, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Who knows?
Yeah.
And of course, waiting at the other end is Nebraska, a team you play twice, and Price Stanford, a guy he knows pretty well. What is that like preparing? It's not just a Sweet 16, JR. It's a Sweet 16 against a rival that you went to overtime with, and then you court stormed one time. How do you get ready? And is it different Would you rather see in Nebraska, or would you rather see Texas Tech or Georgia, somebody that's not somebody that you know as well as you know now?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to see somebody different, but what I do know is I trust Mac, and I feel like he's going to have those guys so well prepared. We'll probably have some new wrinkles. We're going to know what they're doing inside and out. And to be honest, I think it's a good matchup for us. So I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, and I'm looking forward to it. And I keep telling myself it can happen, and this is the fun part about this March Madness. You just never know. And, beginning of the year, would I have signed up for this? Hell yeah, brother. I mean, this is pretty special. Like, let's go. Let's see. Let's keep playing.
I love it. I love it. When you look at Price, obviously somebody he knows really well, and just outside of Price, those guys went through a lot together last year, and I know how close they were towards the end. You got Brock making the NCAA tournament, winning a game there. Riley Movey's playing more minutes in one game. I think they played all last year. Price is doing what he's doing. Fran makes the NCAA tournament, which I think was awesome. Does as a dad who knows all of these guys, are you watching around and those are people I know you're rooting for as well, besides the Hawkeyes? Well, maybe not 100%. Maybe not Price this week, but
I did send Price some messages throughout the year. I was happy for him, especially, no offense, Jim Matson and Illini Nation, but when they came in the assembly hall and they took them down, I said, hell yeah. Like, I love that. So, there's no love lost, if you can't tell. So Price is a great guy. Yeah, I mean, Price and Peyton and they were super to Coop. They were good. They're good friends. They joke, and Coop came home. I don't know when it was. They had a little break, and he was so pumped because he's going to Peyton's wedding, and he's looking forward to seeing everybody. So those guys still have a very close spot in his heart, and they're going to go battle it out for 40 minutes. And, I think that they'll still be friends afterwards, but, hopefully the Hawks have the sweet, I don't know, we can go to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot of fun. You mentioned the Illini. I think we'll probably wrap it up with this. The Quad Cities is the area for Iowa and Illinois. That's the rivalry. That's what I grew up with. And so if you look at gambling, Iowa's like plus 130 to win, and Illinois is like plus 130. So if you add it all up, not to be a gambling dork, but basically it's 4-1 odds that Iowa and Illinois will both win and play each other on Saturday night with a trip to the Final Four on the line. JR, if I would have told you before the season that Iowa and Illinois were going to play to go to the Final Four, what would you put the odds at? See, a lot higher than 4-1.
Man, I haven't even really thought that. I've thought that, but I haven't. Like, I'm so in my mind, it's Nebraska. But I've had so many people reach out to me and talk about the potential this, the potential that, and I don't know. Like, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty nuts. I mean, the Big Ten has shown out, and it just, usually we beat the hell out of each other and then nobody does anything. But this year, the guys are able to do stuff and get loose in the big dance and show out. So it's pretty special. If something happens, and we are lucky and fortunate enough to play Illinois, it'll be a similar matchup to be honest, to Florida. Size, they play fast, they shoot a lot of threes, they got bigs that go to work inside. There maybe Illinois is maybe a little bit more perimeter based, but it's still going to be a battle of kind of different philosophies and different styles.
JR, last one, I lied. How do you watch a game? How do you watch a game? Are you superstitious at all? Are you doing anything? Is there anything you can tell us about? Are you standing a certain way? Any superstitions?
Yeah, I tell people that I'm not superstitious, but I'm Yeah, I'm a little stitious. So
Love it.
I wear the same outfit. You know, if we win or we have a good win, or if Coop plays well or shoots well, you'll see me probably in the same outfit the next game. So last 2 games, I've worn the same thing, and we're taking off Wednesday after some stuff, and I will be getting all that stuff washed up, and it's going to be going on a second trip. So yeah, you just, that's kind of how TD was always a guy when we played. He would be like, all right, you know, if you have a good half, you know, don't do anything. If you have a bad half, go and wash your hands, wash your face. And Kent and Jess will attest to that. You know, that's my TD voice. But, you know, so I don't know. We all kind of have these superstitions a little bit just kind of built into us.
Oh, that's great. Well, JR, I can't wait for Thursday. Thursday is it's not that far away, but it's gonna seem like forever, I think, for Iowa fans and everything else. You done good when it comes to obviously a basketball player, which is fun for Iowa fans to watch. But getting to know Cooper as a young man, you done good, Dad, and that's the most important thing. Basketball is basketball, but he's a really good young man. Enjoy it. And how about we do this next week again, talking about the Final Four?
Sounds like a good plan.
All right,
All
let's
right.
make that.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you, JR. That is
Thank
JR
you.
Koch, Cooper Koch's dad, former Iowa Hawkeye. And again, I didn't even ask him or say him, but I believe he scored 12 points in the to get Iowa to the Sweet 16 back in 1999. And Cooper, 12 points the other night as well. So we got a lot more to get to. You're watching a busy edition of Off the Air on a Tuesday right here in the Quad Cities. For over 65 years, Lindquist Ford has proudly served the Quad Cities, and they're just getting started. Looking for a new ride? Check out a healthy mix of new and quality pre-owned vehicles ready for you. Need service? Skip the waiting room. With free pickup and delivery and mobile service, they come to you. No delays, no hassle. From routine maintenance to a full-service collision repair shop, it's fast, friendly, reliable, and always transparent. Lindquist Ford, serving the Quad Cities since 1959. Experience the difference today.
Hey, I'm the Crawford guy.
Ooh, do you guys always speak at the same time?
Sorry, guys. I'll go first. You know, if you need help with your heating or air conditioning, or electrical, or plumbing, Crawford Company can solve your problem.
But what about your problem?
What problem?
Do you not hear yourselves? Take it from me, the Crawford lady.
And me, the Crawford guy.
Crawford is the comfort company.
Are you looking to take your next party, tailgate, or golf outing to the next level? You need mobile party experience. MPX features 3 top-of-the-line party trailers equipped with all the amenities you need to party like a rock star. Smart TVs, Yeti coolers, JBL sound systems, grills, bathrooms, and much more. Mobile party experience is an experience like no other. Check out my-mpx.com or call 563-514-1470 and book your mobile party experience today. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities. To say it was an interesting and an eventful weekend in college basketball in our area is an understatement. Of course, we talked a lot about it. Iowa State, and Illinois all going to the Sweet 16. And yesterday's show, fantastic show. If you missed it, go back and look at it. Go back and watch it. Packed full of a lot of Iowa stuff, some Illinois stuff. And I went extra. I went over, and I didn't do much with Iowa State. And I got the complaints, which is great because that means people are watching. And I don't know if they want like Cyclone talk or if they just want Jake Brend. I think it's more of the latter. I think they just
why not? Why wouldn't they?
Can I ask you off the top? If I gave you this question and you had to fill in the blank, Jake Brend is blank about Iowa going to the Sweet 16. What would you fill the blank in with? Does that make sense?
Not confident? Does that work?
No, they went to the Sweet 16. So, like, are you?
No,
not
I'm shocked.
In the Sweet 16. Shocked.
Shocked, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. But mad?
No,
Don't care.
I
Don't
don't think so.
Yeah, don't care.
Todd Golden's
You can say it.
Todd Golden is controversial. I'll leave it at that.
That's the. Oh, wait, I thought you were going someplace else. I didn't think controversial was going to be the word that came out of your mouth. Yes,
self-control.
I would agree with that as well. We'll maybe dabble with Iowa at the very end because I know you like to poke the bear and the bear likes to poke back at you. But Iowa State in the Sweet 16, third time in 5 years. So obviously, while Iowa fans celebrate something that hasn't happened in 27 damn years, it's becoming the norm in Ames a little bit. Your thoughts on, I guess, just being in St. Louis and getting the job done without arguably the best player? I mean, there's so many good players on that team, but Joshua Jefferson is a second team All-American for a reason. Thoughts of taking care of business without your best player?
Yeah, I thought Sunday was the best coaching job of Otzelberger's career. I think it was his Mona Lisa, his masterpiece. To lose your best player, I'll put it into this perspective. So this game is over with, in my opinion, this game was over with 15 minutes left. I sent several different, this is going to get ugly. And I think it was still even like a 6-point game at that point. You could tell courtside when Kentucky was up 10, you'd tell their guards hated this game. Like they were not going anywhere. And that's what I think was so brilliant about how Otzelberger has built this program, where they couldn't hit a shot, man. They were missing wide open three after wide open three after wide open three. They weren't getting to the rim. They were missing bunnies. They were missing free throws. And you still never felt like they were going to lose the game because their defensive ball pressure made Kentucky so miserable. And so I wrote up all of that with 5 minutes left in the game, and I was going to send tweet as soon as the game was over. And then as soon as I was about to sleep, I realized, oh gosh, they did this without Joshua Jefferson. I should probably put that in the tweet. And I put that towards the end of the tweet because that's how well they played without Jefferson, that you forgot that they'd lost their first consensus All-American since George Niang for the game. And while they'd need Jefferson for this team to hit their ceiling, I think Otzelberger's built this program so well that the floor is still so high that they can sustain losing their All-American player and they can go beat the crap out of a roster that is how many times expensive as Iowa State's, as any other roster in the country. And Iowa State made Kentucky hate the sport of basketball, and they made those guards want to get on the bus when there was still a lot of basketball left to be played. And I think that's TJ Otzelberger's program to a T.
You kind of talk about that because it's not, hey, this is, I mean, Iowa might be a little different because it's I don't want to say lightning in a bottle, but it's new, if that makes sense. And it does because Ben McCullum has only been there for a year, maybe less than a year. This is what Iowa State is. Like, this is what he's built. This is you mentioned, like, you can change the names a little bit, and obviously the familiar names that have been there for a long time have helped, but this is kind of what you expect. And the players, they talk about it openly. This is what we do. We're regimented. This is what we've been I don't want to say sent here to do, but this is what they're used to doing. Kind of talk about that because that's a huge loss. The majority of teams in the country playing to go to the Sweet 16 that loses an All-American, it's a huge impact. And it almost looked like, in a way, it didn't impact them at all. I'm sure it did. I'm not saying that, but that's a testament to TJ, isn't it?
Oh, no doubt. I knew, I got vibes when I showed up to the arena where the night before the game, my boss, Chris Williams, and I were talking, and we both had like a very sneaky, optimistic, I kind of feel like they're going to run away with this game. And then I woke up with a pit in my stomach because I woke up and I realized, oh my gosh, this could be Taman Lipsey's last game. We could never see Joshua Jefferson put on a uniform again. And it hit me and I got a little panicked in that moment. And once I showed up to the arena, we were sitting in the workroom and you just hear rap music blaring. Like, what in the world is this? So I turn the corner. It's Iowa State warming up. And I have no doubt in my mind that Otzelberger is like, let's go warm up in the tunnel. Let's play music as loud as we can and intimidate Kentucky and let them know that we're going to go. Not only are we going to punch them in the rib, we're going to punch them in the face, and then we're going to punch them somewhere else, and then we're going to do it again. And that's exactly what Iowa State did. that team came out so motivated, so on fire, and there was no shot that Taman Lipsey was going to let that be his last game. And I think that right there, that's what it says about TJ Otzelberger, that they didn't really need motivation, I think, on Sunday, but if I can imagine knowing, I'm guessing he gave them a little bit of extra motivation before that game, and they went and kicked the living crap out of Kentucky. And it's probably my favorite TJ Otzelberger game ever, the way that they did it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It was so impressive. Jake Brend joining us from Cyclone Fanatic and Off Day with Matt Randazzo. What was the celebration like there? We saw what we saw on TV and all those kind of things, and every Sweet 16 is special, especially, if there's another team in the state that doesn't do it for 27 years. So it's nothing, but it seems like, was it workmanlike? Was it still fun, or was it like, obviously there's excitement, but they have bigger fish to fry, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, to me, it felt like a checkpoint, and they were very glad to cross that off the list. And TJ Otzelberger, I mean, usually Otz will have a win. It could be against number 2 Houston at Hilton. It could be against Kansas by double digits. It could be any win at Hilton. And he's almost always going to walk off the court the same way, through the tunnel, straight faced, give a couple people some high fives on the way out. On Sunday, he put his fist up like this for a minute as he was walking off the court, went and high-fived all the band, signed autographs for 3 or 4 minutes. Otz doesn't usually do that. And to me, that was him soaking in the moment and thanking the fans who they outdid Kentucky, which I didn't think was going to happen after being in the building on Friday. Kentucky had the most fans of anyone, and Iowa State outnumbered them at the Enterprise Center. So it definitely felt like more of a celebration than most wins, but it felt more of like a statement of this is just scratching the surface. This team has a lot of basketball still to be played, and that's the sense that I got being in the locker room.
Let's talk about the next basketball to be played. And you filled out the brackets. I think I had Virginia there against Iowa State, but I didn't have any problems picking Virginia to go, or excuse me, Iowa State to beat Virginia. I feel the same about Tennessee. In fact, when I look at the matchups for the Sweet 16 and I start looking around, it's not a very exciting Chicago, because I think Michigan's much better than Alabama, and I think Iowa State's much better than Tennessee. Would you agree with that? And I know it's cliche to say, and we've talked a lot about it on this show, but if Iowa State doesn't muck it up for themselves, they should be playing in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four against Michigan, right?
Yeah, it feels like a similar matchup to Kentucky, but I think Tennessee's better coached. I think they're more disciplined, and I think they play for the name on the front of their jersey more than Kentucky does. All of those elements Iowa State was able to use against Kentucky, and like I said, kick the crap out of them. Tennessee, I don't think it'll be as easy to do that, but I do think Iowa State's the better team, even if they don't have Jefferson, even if Jefferson's at 70%, or who knows, maybe Jefferson is at even better of a percentage. We won't know until the game gets here. Regardless, I think if Iowa State plays the way they did, and that doesn't include shot making. It just means if they're pressuring the ball, if they're diving on the floor for loose balls, rebounding the way they did against Kentucky, the shots will fall. I don't anticipate Iowa State starting off this game 0 of 11 from 3 like they did against Kentucky. If Momcilovic or Bateman has a good day, I foresee Iowa State going to their first Elite Eight since the year 2000.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because they did spot Kentucky, 12 points or whatever in the first whatever the game, and then it was over after that. And like you said, you don't want to spot any team in the Sweet 16, anything. I got to talk to you a little more about Joshua Jefferson. There's an MRI, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to know, and any coach isn't going to tell anybody what might happen until closer to game time, probably Friday, before you find out what's going on. What's your gut feeling? So many people like to read body language and all those kind of things, and it's kind of silly to read. I mean, the guy hurt his ankle, so crutches and boots are things. Like, I think people will get carried away when, like, oh, he's on crutches. It's like, yeah. And some people are on crutches, and then 2 days later they're off crutches. Your thoughts, your vibe on Joshua Jefferson? Do you have a gut feeling?
Yeah, my gut feeling would tell me that he plays. as far as what we've seen and what we've heard so far, the injury was not as bad as they thought. His ankle's super swollen, and that's going to be really hard to play on. There's no doubt. As long as the MRI comes back with no ligament damage or anything like that, I would anticipate that his ankle's not going to be perfect by Friday, but I think it'll be good enough for him to try and give it a go. Now, the question becomes, would you rather have Nate Heise starting or a 60% Joshua Jefferson? Is that number 75%? Is it 85%? That's something we don't know. I don't even know if TJ Otzelberger knows the answer to that question. I don't know if Jefferson knows the answer to that question. But my gut feeling would tell me that I think he'll try and give it a go. Is that 15 minutes? Is he pretty close to being back to normal? I don't really know, but I wouldn't read too much into him being on a scooter because he's dealing with an ankle injury. Why? If the goal's to rest, if the goal's to get back, rest, ice, rest, ice, rest, ice. It doesn't say walk on it. He shouldn't be walking on a boot just to prove to people that he can walk. It's all precautionary. It's all trying to get him off of that ankle as much as humanly possible. And I don't really think him being on a scooter on Sunday has much to do with his status for Friday.
If you can get Joshua Jefferson for 15 minutes at 70%, 60% on Friday, or you could get him for 25 minutes at 75% on Sunday, what would you do?
That's a good question.
Because I think they can beat Tennessee regardless. Maybe
I think so too. I think if you're giving me those numbers, I'm taking my chances with Tennessee and saying, let's see if we can have Jefferson to be 25 or to be 75% for 25 minutes on Sunday.
That, you don't want him to re-aggravate anything. And I'm not saying don't play him. I mean, they'll know much more. And if he feels like he can play, go play and all those kind of things. I don't think it's an easy matchup. I think the last time we sat here on the show and talked about an easy matchup and overlooking somebody, Texas Tech beat Iowa State at the Hilton.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that. I'm not that guy. I don't want to do that. But it is interesting how you play it, because we kind of talked before we started. I think they can beat Tennessee without him, and it's not easy. They can't beat Michigan without him, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not going to say can't, because the way Iowa State played against Kentucky, if Michigan has an off night from 3 and Iowa State plays the way they did Sunday, they can absolutely knock them off, but their chances go down substantially without Jefferson. Like if Jefferson was 100%, which he's not going to be 100% Sunday, I would put this game at a coin flip. If Jefferson's at 80%, it's probably a 40% chance. Either way, like every time you drop his health, his percentage, Iowa State's percentage of winning goes down, especially in a matchup like this against Michigan. Long story short, though, they'll need him to beat Michigan and go to the first Final Four since 1944. A long time ago.
And crazy to even think about. Jake Brend joining us on Off the Day with Matt Randazzo. A couple more before I let you get out of here for the day. You look at this matchup against Tennessee. Jefferson, no doubt Jefferson, whatever it may be. Who's an X factor? Or is there a matchup? Have you looked enough ahead into Tennessee to look and say, like, this guy's got to be good, or I like this matchup versus that guy? Give me a little X's and O's when it comes to Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a really big matchup for Blake Buchanan. Tennessee is the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. They also turn the ball over a lot. I envision Tennessee kind of just chucking up shots, because if you can have the rebounding edge and also not turn the ball over, they can pull down, I don't know, 20% of their misses and put them back for points. Those are going to be opportunities that you're not giving Iowa State the ball to go the other way. You can ugly it up. And that's going to come down to Iowa State's bigs, specifically Blake Buchanan, to close possessions. And he's been really good so far against great competition. He's played his best basketball against Houston, against Arizona, against Kansas, teams that all have great big men, teams that all crash the boards like no other. It's on Buchanan to, like, Iowa State's probably going to lose the rebounding battle against Tennessee. They're probably going to give up 12 to 15 second chance points, and you can live with that. you can't live with more than that is the thing. And that's on Buchanan. That's on Dominicus Plata. It's on Nate Heisey and Iowa State's guards as well to come in and rebound. And they were able to do it against Kentucky. That was my biggest concern going into that matchup, and Iowa State only allowed 5 offensive rebounds. So if you can mimic something similar, doesn't have to be holding them to 5. That would be, if Iowa State holds Tennessee to 5 offensive rebounds, they'll beat them by 25. You don't have to do that, but if you can limit them to in the 10 and 12 range, then I really like Iowa State's chances to walk out of there with a win.
It is a late night game. 9:10 Central Time.
Yeah.
At the
so it'll probably be
Center.
9:45 the way these games go. And
yeah.
There'll probably be 12 replays in the Michigan game before.
Is there a line? I mean, there obviously is a line. What is the line on the game?
Last I saw was Iowa State 4.5.
Really? That seems is that Vegas saying they don't think Joshua Jefferson's going to play?
That probably tells me Vegas is unsure if he'll play.
That makes sense.
And granted, so Kentucky was 5.5 absolutely without Jefferson. It probably would have been 7.5 with Jefferson. So 3 points between Kentucky and Tennessee. That feels mostly right. We'll see though if there is official news on if he is or isn't going to play, how much that could swing the line.
Thoughts on what it'll look like at the UC. Obviously, Michigan is there. They're close as well. They'll travel well. Iowa State always travels well when it comes to that kind of stuff. Your thoughts on the environment, the atmosphere? It's not Houston playing in Houston by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think they'll travel everybody from the state of Nebraska like Nebraska did against Oklahoma, down at Oklahoma City. Your thoughts on what it'll look like? They always travel well. I go back to, wasn't it Milwaukee several years ago? Just all Iowa State fans?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a good crowd. I anticipate Michigan having the most. They're a massive university. I'm guessing, have a very large alumni base in Chicago. I think Michigan will probably be the biggest fan base at the United Center, but I think Iowa State's going to show out. I've had people text me that are going. I'm like, wow, okay, you're going. You don't go to this stuff that often. It's a special opportunity for Iowa State. I think a lot of people took calculated gambles and said, I'm not going to go to St. Louis. I'm going to save that money because the Cyclones are going to be in Chicago, and I'm going to go buy up those tickets. I think it'll be a really great atmosphere, especially Friday. Like, Iowa State's going to have a massive edge over Tennessee. If you get past Tennessee, the crowd against Michigan could be a different story, but it's not like Iowa State's going to be severely outnumbered in either of those matchups.
Do you feel comfortable giving us a prediction for Tennessee, Iowa State, or do you need to wait to find out who plays?
No, I think I'll pick Iowa State to win either way.
Score?
I don't think it's comfortable. I think they win like a 5 to 8 point game.
Okay.
Either way, Jefferson or not.
Yeah. No, I can see that as well. Okay, if you are not going to Chicago, and I don't want to say sites because I know they're different sites, but if you're not going to Chicago, what other Sweet 16 game would you want to go to and watch?
Ooh.
I think there's a lot of really good ones.
There are a lot of great ones because up in the East region, you've got like the coaching masterclass between Shire and Pitino, Hurley and Izzo. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
In the South, you've got Houston with home court advantage against Illinois in a total oil-water matchup that those teams couldn't really be more opposite from each other. And then you've obviously got the storyline of Iowa, Nebraska, and all of the drama that's ensued there. Chicago's going to be great, but Chicago might be last out of those 4, honestly.
I think when it comes to competitive games, I think the better games are probably other places, competitiveness-wise. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the Sweet 16 up or down in the West, Arizona, Arkansas is fascinating. Arizona, I think, is the best team in the country. Acuff might be the best offensive player in the country. I think he's certainly the best offensive player remaining in the NCAA tournament. I think that's a fascinating matchup. Purdue, Texas, I can do without. I won't be too hung up on that game, but there's a lot of great Sweet 16 games. But I will say this, if Iowa State and Arizona and Michigan both advance to the Elite Eight, that might be the best single Elite Eight game out of all of those brackets.
I think when I looked at my brackets, I've said this several times, the Iowa State-Michigan was the toughest one for me to pick, and if it comes to fruition, it could still. And then I also this Houston Illinois game. Can you give us some insight? I know Big 12. You've watched a ton. You've probably watched too much Big 12 basketball. It's probably unhealthy, Jake. You probably need to
no
see
doubt
some counseling or something. What do you see in that game? Because we see, and in this area, we know a lot about Illinois. We know of Houston. We know what they're like. Everyone keeps telling me it's a really good Houston team, but it's not as good as what they've been in the past. And you mentioned oil and water. What do you think of that game?
Houston's different than what they've been in the past, but they're still led by a veteran backcourt, and they still have Kelvin Sampson, and they still rebound, and they're still tough. They're maybe not as good on the interior from an offensive perspective as they've been in the past. They struggle to get to the rim. They have one of the lowest rates of scoring at the rim of any team in the country, let alone teams in the tournament. Illinois, the way that they play basketball, they shoot a ton of threes. And they don't even have the best three-point percentage. They just have a very high three-point rate, and they make a lot of them. They rely on offensive rebounding those missed threes and converting those to points. Some of Illinois' problems against the top teams have been that they haven't been able to be the bully in offensive rebound. And I can assure you, you're not going to bully Kelvin Sampson. That's the part in this matchup that makes me lean towards Houston, because if there's one thing of anyone in this entire tournament that I trust someone to neutralize another team's strength, it's Houston's ability to keep someone off the glass. And that's what makes me lean Houston. But it is a really tricky game because Illinois very well could explode to make 15 threes and beat Houston in their hometown.
You mentioned Tennessee and just shooting it just to get offensive rebounds. I feel that's the way it is sometimes. I felt that way in their first game with Penn. Illinois just shot it. If it went in, great, from three. If it didn't, they'd get 2 or 3 opportunities to put it back in. Instead of just lobbing it inside, they figured, hey, we'll try a 3 first and then get a bucket inside. Like you said, I don't see that happening against Houston. All right, last but not least, Fred Hoiberg's a guy that Iowa State fans love, has done great things, obviously. Nebraska, Iowa, third time they're playing. Any thoughts on that game as a impartial observer? I don't know if that's exactly what you are. I don't know if many people would call you that, but no?
It's generous.
Your thoughts on that game before we let you go?
I mean, it's fascinating. One team's never been there. The other team hasn't been there in a long time. I think Nebraska's the better team. They've had the better body of work. But Iowa also just beat Florida, a team that nobody gave them a chance against. So there's a lot of factors at play. You wonder, when is Bennett Sturtz going to figure it out and make some shots? If it's Thursday night, they very well could beat Nebraska and move on to the Elite Eight. To me, I watched pretty much every second of both Iowa-Nebraska games this year. It felt like that game in Iowa City, Nebraska played themselves out of that game. Like they played right into Iowa's hands, in my opinion, and they didn't do that in Lincoln. I know Iowa got it to overtime. That comeback was really impressive, but I felt like Nebraska outplayed them more at home than Iowa outplayed Nebraska at home. But again, it's a brand new matchup. There's a lot of different variables that come into play in March. Like mindset's different, mentality's different. I think it's a true toss-up, and I think this one could go either way. However, I think Nebraska's probably going to have a much bigger contingent there because they had an entire day to buy tickets before Iowa. No Iowa fans were buying tickets on Saturday because Iowa fans didn't think they were going to beat Florida. So that's where I feel like Nebraska fans probably were able to buy up all the tickets. And I know last I saw, the cheapest get-in rate was like $700 for Thursday night. So I anticipate Nebraska having a pretty favorable crowd advantage over Iowa.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, you mentioned Bennett Sturtz. I think all Iowa fans are waiting for him to have a game that he had all of February. Like February, he was early February, he was really good, and then it's been a struggle shooting it. And you mentioned he goes for 30 and figures it out. It could be, and you'll appreciate this, and I promise I'll let you go. I figured this out on Sunday night. It was I think Illinois is like plus 130 to win. I think I think Iowa's plus 130. So you toss them together, it's like plus 420 or something like that, plus 425. So basically 4-1 odds that Iowa and Illinois are playing each other to go to the Final Four. If I would have told you in November, hey, what do you think the odds of Iowa and Illinois playing each other to go to the Final Four are? Would you have said like 1 in a million?
Yeah, I was going to say add a couple of zeros.
It's crazy.
40 to 1, 400 to 1 maybe.
I'd say 400. And because you got to get in the same bracket and everything. I mean, that's just the weird part of it. So it's crazy. Again, I do think the best team, and none of the fans will like to hear this, Illinois fans, Iowa fans, Nebraska fans, I think Houston at Houston in Houston is the best chance of coming out of that bracket. Iowa State plays late Friday. You don't have to. Old TV guys here, we hate having to have to wait to the game's not over. You don't have to do that with the Cyclone Fanatic. Jake does all the work, then puts it right on there. Head to the Cyclone Fanatic, get everything you need. I'm assuming you're taking a crew of hundreds over to UC?
There'll be a lot. We'll have full team coverage at the United Center at the house that Patrick Kane built. I can't wait to be there. It's going to be a blast. That wasn't even shade at Michael Jordan. I'm an MJ guy over LeBron. Patrick Kane's maybe my favorite athlete of all time. So I had to give a shout out. I had to give a shout out to Showtime.
We're going to have to follow up on that at a different time because that's intriguing to me. Great stuff from St. Louis. Continue the great work in Chicago. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, Dazzo.
All right. That is Jake Brend from Cyclone Fanatic. Did a great job, like I just mentioned, down in St. Louis. And it's an easy travel for him. You go to St. Louis, now over to Chicago. Again, a late game for Iowa State. It'll be a 9:10 start, which is probably going to be like a 9:30 start when everything gets said and done. So it'll be a big night for Iowa State. And, of course, Thursday night, it's Iowa playing and then Illinois right after them. So a lot to talk about this week here on OTA. We got more to get to on today's show. We'll be right back after this.
Give me the keys. Learning to drive can be stressful for both the student and, yes, the parent as well. Relax. There's an easy way to avoid the stress. Skiles Driving School in East Moline has been helping new drivers hit the road with confidence for over 20 years. Whether you're a teen earning your first license or an adult looking for behind-the-wheel training, we've got you covered. Their certified instructors are patient, experienced, and use modern vehicles equipped for safety and comfort. From classroom instruction to real-world driving, we make learning safe, affordable, and even fun. Call 309-278-0098 or visit skylesdriving.com. Skiles Driving School. Get in, buckle up, drive your future forward.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off Day with Matt Randazzo here on a Tuesday in the Quad Cities, Tuesday, March 24. Thank you guys so much for watching, not just today, yesterday as well. All the past weeks and months, we appreciate it. It's been a really fun week and a really good week here for basketball in our area for March Madness, but also for OTA. It's been a fun, good week, couple weeks as well. And again, we appreciate the support, you guys tuning in, all of those kind of things as well. And of course, our sponsors for being so good to us and allowing us to do this goofy little show each and every weekday as well. If you missed today's show, first and foremost, shame on you. Where have you been? We started off with Kyle Huesmann with some talk of what happened yesterday and Iowa losing to Virginia, but I didn't want to focus everything on that. I think it's an intriguing future. Your three best players, arguably three of your best players, I should say, obviously, Hannah Stolke is leaving and done with her eligibility, but three big building blocks and then some really good pieces that go around it. Obviously a really good 5-star recruit. So what does the future look like? There's probably going to be additions, maybe some subtractions. What does the transfer portal look like? Kyle Huesmann joined us and talked about yesterday. And then, of course, the future with Iowa women's basketball earlier in the show. Go check that out. Great insight from Kyle, finishing up his 5th season covering Iowa women's basketball for the Hawkeye Report. It's been great to have him on the show as much as we've gotten to have him. He's been fantastic to us as well. Also on the show, yesterday we had Jess Settles and Kent McCausland. We continued our trip down memory lane. This one though a little more relevant, even more relevant. They're all relevant, but JR Koch, Cooper Koch's dad, joining us. Of course, JR part of that 1999 Sweet 16 team, but also the father of Cooper Koch. So really great stuff from JR. Go check it out if you missed it. Some insightful stuff of a year ago when he was in the transfer portal and didn't know what was going on in general. It was a really great chat. So go check out JR Koch as well. And then Jake Brend just talked a bunch of Cyclones with us. So we've gotten a lot of Iowa men basketball this week. Illinois basketball yesterday with Mike Kegley. If you missed that, Jake Brend today. We're trying to check every box as we go. Iowa women today. Tomorrow, Ked Prince on the show. I'm excited about that. Talk some more Illini with him, and everybody's traveling right now, getting ready to go down to Houston. So we've got Tom Kakert in our sights and other people as well as we continue to work our way up to Thursday. A huge day of college basketball on Thursday in our area. It's Iowa, Nebraska, first game, and then followed by Illinois and Houston in game number 2. So a ton to get to, a ton to talk about. If you missed any of the shows yesterday or in the past, go check it out. Thank you for subscribing on the YouTube channel. Like, comment, all of those things. It's absolutely free. Helps us out a ton. And thank you for watching today's show. We will be back with another episode of OTA coming up tomorrow.